Hi.
Hi, Jack.
Welcome to Pipcast.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Josh.
We're joined by
I'm back.
Josh again
Back.
today.
We didn't scare him off.
No.
We
Cowie
welcomed himself
tried
back.
her best.
Yeah,
but
she did.
Yeah.
I'm back.
I know. I listened to that. It was like she was talking about hazing. we're not going to haze Josh today.
No.
Sounds like a plan.
But
Yeah.
we did rope Josh in because he has started to dabble a little bit in how we might roll out some AI stuff at Kid Link.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about AI and therapy and
All the things we can do.
our fears and excitement, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I think that sums it up best in terms of what can we do? And it's a little bit scary.
Yeah. I think it's like that outside of clinical work as well at the moment. People are like, look at all these amazing things we can do, but also it could be potentially terrifying as well.
Yeah. What are your
Um,
thoughts so far, Josh, on AI? Can we avoid it?
I don't think we can avoid
No.
it. It continues to grow. It continues to serve a really cool purpose within the healthcare system, within everyday life. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many different facets and ideas and things you can do with it. So
yeah.
as it continues to grow, I don't think we can avoid it, no.
Yeah.
How have we started dabbling in it?
We've looked at what are the privacy requirements and how the data's kept and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff and
Yeah.
the legalities around AI, but also day-to-day practice. Is it going to be helpful in terms of note-taking? Is it going to be helpful in terms of recording meeting minutes and
Yeah.
giving summaries?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been great for me. Everyone will attest to how good I am at keeping meeting minutes and just recording
Click of a button and
actionables.
she's done her job.
Turn AI on. I don't know if I like all the accountability, though. It was much easier when I just claimed that tasks weren't assigned to me, but
Somebody's actually keeping track now.
like, no, the AI got that name wrong.
Yeah.
That was someone else's job. So we've started, I think we're taking a pretty cautious approach
Yeah,
to how we're
definitely.
using it with our client work. But I think for other things where we can kind of save time, I think we're open to pretty much using it however we can.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't put us out of our job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of professions, not just even within the allied health realm, have had that thought, like, can AI take over my job?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT that question.
Of course you did.
Ironically.
About OT? Yeah. Love it.
And it basically came back to us and said no, because
Yeah.
it can't do the clinical reasoning side of
Yeah.
things. So I think that's what we've kind of landed on. Like we don't ask it to answer any questions for us, really.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to everyone knows that AI is only as good as the prompt you put in. So we will ask it to proof things for us. But even then, what are your thoughts on how it can proof? Because we certainly, with the, when you're lining up privacy and things like that, we definitely don't dump whole reports in and that kind of thing. So how are we planning on using it with things like report writing?
Yeah, within report writing, and I, no secret to anyone at Killing, but my report writing, it's taken a lot of work to get to where
Yeah.
it is, and I've had to put a lot of time and effort into it.
Yeah, it's a real skill, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a real skill. But in terms of putting sentences and just plugging in, make sure there's no grammatical errors
Yeah.
as part of this, and obviously de-identifying if there's any client names. But yeah, like things around grammatical errors. Even I've just typed in "make this make sense."
Yeah.
I've brain dumped. I want to say this, and this
Yeah.
as part of a sentence. Make this make sense.
Yeah.
I find as well, often you'll think you've written a really good caption, or even for the podcast, sometimes
yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's a great description.
Yeah.
And then you chuck it in AI, I'm like, oh, that's really good though. That is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. I know we used it a little bit in establishing, podcast write-ups and descriptions, a little bit of stuff in terms of the OT link marketing and that side of things. I know I use it in the email marketing when I'm looking at doing that, and just writing little blurbs or subject lines or anything along those.
Yeah, that stuff it's really useful for.
Yeah.
Because I think that, we really want to stick with sharing our clinical expertise. So when we're writing a blog, it's very much our thoughts on paper, but it does its job to make sure it actually reads well and gets the point across. And sometimes it is like, make this more succinct, or so we definitely use it for those kinds of things for sure. We've started to dabble in some of our external supervision. We've kind of used our external supervisees as guinea pigs, I suppose, with how we can record the meeting minutes. And we've been using Heidi Health. I know I've paid for a subscription so that I can actually put my own templates in for my like business mentees, so that we can actually make sure the notes. But it does a pretty good job. I take notes alongside, and if it's missed anything, I'll put it in. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, the context of that wasn't quite right. So it really is that you need to like check everything very carefully.
And you need to set it up, like you said, because it, like Heidi Health has like generic templates that you can access and that kind of thing. And I found when I at least put in our kind of headings that we typically use for external supervision in, it was a little bit better. But I think if you were to take the time to set it up and put rules in and all of that kind of thing, perhaps you might get a more succinct note. I would say for me when I did that, and maybe just because with our current external supervision service, we encourage our supervisees to take more detailed notes themselves, and we're sending a summary. It was almost too much. Like I was like, oh, that's a really good summary, but I don't need to send that much information to them.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And we use Sploce as our client management software, and I know there's capabilities in there to like summarize previous notes and those kinds of things. So I think with things that we can't bill for, I think that is a really good space to save time, because we know that, you know, of our 38-hour week, we often are only billing, you know, 18 to 20 hours of that out to clients sometimes. So all that extra time that we're using, so things like Medicare letters and those kinds of things, we really see a big opportunity to be able to, in Sploce, you know, summarize previous notes and all of that kind of thing. But I really think that checking is where it's at.
Because you still need to use your brain power there.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's obvious to me when you can see something that's been written by AI, and we've been speaking about even email responses we get sometimes, and it's quite clearly AI. And I think that it's a really tricky line to walk, isn't it, when we're using it?
Going back to the Sploce side of things, I've been like playing around and like, is it able to generate me a summary for a pediatrician or a summary directed towards a teacher, or can it provide a summary of the last maybe 5 session notes to provide to a family, or I don't know, whoever is
might
relevant.
Be great for if you're doing a Medicare letter, like those sessions that they're claiming on, can you just summarize those 6 sessions or whatever?
The beauty of what Sploce does and how it data and
does it work well?
Yeah, really, really well.
Yeah, cool.
You have to build a bank, so every note that you write into Sploce for that specific client, that's all kept within the data realm for that one client. So there's no transference between client stuff, and the model doesn't learn about other clients, which is really nice. But it does a really accurate representation of what you have done, as long as you said before, Jack, it's only as good as the prompt that you give it. So outlining what you need in that pediatrician letter or the teacher letter or the Medicare letter. So giving it topics and summary points is really important, but it does a really good job of accurately summarizing what you've done.
And I think that's the thing, like and you can probably weigh in a little bit more, Jack, because you're the director of the Kid Link, but I think it's also weighing up those benefits of like what employers can like look to spend more money on, to save money on and time on for their employees and that kind of thing. And because we do know that part of the system that we use is an additional cost, but will it then kind of allow therapists to put their time into more meaningful things for their families? Probably.
I think a big implication is consent. I think that's massive, in that we really need to be careful that what we are recording is done with consent.
And it's hard to do informed consent when we're still trying to figure out the informed part.
Oh,
like
100%.
Like
That's
families
right.
will definitely have their hesitations because they're like, well, where's the data going? What about in 10 years? Where's that data?
Yeah. And I find our supervisees and our mentees, they're occupational therapists and they're doubling in it as well. So I haven't had anyone say, oh, no, I'm not.
you.
No, thank you. But I think with families, they're well within their right to say they don't want to use AI for their notes. And we need to be really careful that we are making sure that we're obtaining consent, and that I guess it depends on people's appetite for risk, but making sure that we're really clear in how we are using it and documenting it in our service agreements. And I think that we do that with everything. We're really transparent about the platforms we use, where that information is stored, how it's used, and we're quite, I guess our appetite for risk internally is quite low here when it comes to storing information.
Yeah.
We very much de-identify everything and anything we can unless it's stored in Splos.
Yeah, and that's the thing, even like with that transfer to Splos, like it's meant that notes can be sent directly from there. So we're not downloading them onto our laptops and all of that kind of thing. Like
that's right.
We're always trying to look at the risks of
and it was, data was risky before all of this. So now we've got this extra layer that we really need to make sure that we're being very careful about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was interesting as I was looking through the Heidi Health, how it stores data and the privacy around it. They do have like downloadable resources and handouts and things that their own version of an explanation of what Heidi Health is, how the data's kept, and gives you a spiel and a nice family
and
friendly.
It's Australian.
It's
Heidi
Australian.
Health.
Yeah.
So some people find that much more comforting to know that. So looking into that and making sure that depending on like what we spoke about, your appetite for risk, that, if you do need to seek legal advice, to make sure that you are recording things properly and that your consent is done in a way that is ticking all the legal boxes that it needs to. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah. We had a broad discussion of this in one of our group supervisions from OT Link,
cool.
which was interesting because it's nice to hear how other clinicians might use it when their whole schedule looks very different to ours and that kind of thing, or if they're on the road a lot and that kind of thing. And I know one of the OTs was saying that the way that they schedule their day, they're pretty much back to back driving between sessions. And so she's found a way to use, I can't remember what platform she was using off the top of my head, but doing almost like a voice memo of her summary while she's driving.
And then punching that dictation into an AI to form a note about it. Yeah.
So she then essentially her admin time can just be kind of proofing that note rather than, especially if she's, done 6-7 sessions in a day and they all kind of just blend into one by the end of the day when you sit down to write those notes.
Yeah.
So that was interesting because I was like, that would be very true for a lot of clinicians that are seeing kids in the home or school environments, that if they can find ways to get those notes done in a time effective way, it's working for her at the moment.
I think the biggest thing for me to consider, or the thing I feel very strongly about, is making sure that we are only charging for what we do.
Yeah.
So I think if we're charging, whether you do 50-minute sessions and 10 minutes non-face-to-face, or 45 and 20 or whatever that looks like, that if it's saving you time, that the time you are billing is reflected in that.
Yeah.
So for us, if it means that you're still using that non-face-to-face time for that client, I'm okay with that. I think it's when people are...
we're transparent with how we've kind of used that with families as well.
That's right. And I think if you're doing a blanket non-face-to-face time, that's because you know how long your things take. So we know we spend 5 to 10 minutes on planning for all of our clients and synthesizing any updates and setting up the room and planning really effectively. But most of our non-face-to-face time that we bill for is attributed to the note writing time. So if we're going to be cutting down on note writing time, then we really should be cutting down on what we're billing the clients.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that is something really important to consider, because I think there's a lot of scrutiny at the moment around how, especially with the NDIS, how therapists are billing for time. And I think that we need to make sure that we are charging our worth, but not flipping the other way. We know that the rates are low. We know that its sustainability of private practice is a little bit threatened at the moment, and that we haven't had a price increase under the NDIS in 6 years. So there is that temptation to create time in our timetables, but we need to make sure that we are charging our worth, but also not, I guess, trying to create time with clients' funding.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, finding that balance it's hard.
Yeah, there's big questions around ethical use in general in that space, I think.
I know that there's, I don't know how many actually on the team, but there's quite a few of us on the team that have found some really cool ways to use AI to, I guess, like within our therapy more. And I think, yes.
Like resources.
It's that balance of like we are still always using our clinical reasoning because we know that AI can't do that for us. But some examples that I know, like myself and Caitlin Cowie have spoken about together, it comes more from a place of if we've got a client where we know they have like a really specific interest, for example, and we know what our goal is, we know what we want to achieve, we know what the activity is, but we want to make it meaningful for that client. And so, for example, it might be that you want to teach them a specific concept and you can kind of punch into AI, this is my role, this is my goal for this child, this is how old they are, this is what they're really interested in, this is what I'm basing it off, whether it's, I really want to do some upstairs, downstairs brain by Dan Siegel, but they're really into this specific game or this specific show. Like, can you help me come up with an activity that they will find meaningful to them?
Yeah, you've already done the clinical reasoning part. You're just creating
because I don't know enough about everything that kids like, unfortunately.
I did this the other day with a handwriting client. It was a goal around letter formation. Their interest was in dinosaurs. I needed a resource, like a fun bit of a resource that I was going to use for a whole bunch of different clients with similar
with your
goals.
Dinosaurs, Josh. Do you know them?
Well, my drawing skills aren't up to scratch.
I feel like I'm learning. I've got nearly 3-year-olds. So they talk a lot about the Diplodocus. So, but yes, I can't draw them.
I wasn't going to back in my drawing skills to make this like. I wanted a resource that they could practice their letter formation, have it all dinosaur filled. I wasn't going to sit there and try and draw dinosaurs for half an hour. So I plugged into AI, develop a handwriting resource, gave it the goal, gave it the client's age. And gave it the special interest around dinosaurs. Gave me this amazing like handwriting resource pack
cool.
that I was able to pick and choose using my clinical reasoning what was going to be useful.
And you would never charge a family to create that for an hour.
Way.
Like that's
the thing. Like
maybe you would, but I highly doubt it. Unless the family, we obviously charge for resource development if it's customized to the client and they really need it as part of their therapy. But there's times where you can actually just make the resource a little bit better and not charge for it because
that still requires
your drawing skills could do as well.
It still requires you to look over it. Sorry. But that's the thing I think as well. Like you're then, I know Cowie was saying that she's used it to develop kind of like a handwriting program that she's put in like these are the skills I want to work on, but this particular child loved Modern Family. So she was like, I know nothing about that show. Can you make it themed around that? And she then put her time still into reviewing that, making sure that it was in line with her clinical reasoning and her goals and that kind of thing.
And again, if you say to the kids, we use this on AI, they'll fact check for you.
100%.
Like, that is not correct.
I've also seen like in my scrolling on TikTok and that kind of thing, like you can create like custom, like sort of like what you did, I guess, Josh, but like coloring pages and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so cool.
And so, if they've got a pet that they absolutely adore and with their consent, if they want to use that pet, they can upload a photo of their pet and say, give me some, fine motor activities with a picture of this pet and it can come up with coloring pages.
So cool. We've got in that vein, we're going to use Macy in an animal-assisted co-regulation group in the holidays. And Maddie and I punched in a few little things because we want it obviously to be themed around Macy. So we already have our session plan. We have our group objectives. We wrote all of those ourselves. So now it's just about how do we explore Macy's energy states in a creative way. And we punch in a few examples and then it can actually create the thing that we can print and use and expand on. So that's really cool that that's the case. So,
there's definitely, and I guess that's where we are being cautious as well, isn't it? Like, where's the line there as well? Where we've generated something versus something's generated for us. But I think we are always mindful of using it for the purpose of building on what we're already giving families rather than doing our job for us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's right.
Yeah. There was another discussion in the office only a couple of days ago around sustainability and how much energy is required to use ChatGPT.
That was in the news a lot. Like, don't say please and thank you because they're
exactly
as an additional like prompt, because every prompt is like,
it uses X amount of water to cool the computers down, or however it works. I'm not like fully across it, but that's also only in the last couple of days since it's been in the news what I've been having to think about. Do I need to spend a little bit of extra time from a sustainability point of view just to write a little bit more in my prompt rather than going do this and then spit something out and then I want this
can you
topic,
shorten that
shorten it or refine this or whatever like the next couple of prompts is. I'm more focusing and having more of a conscious effort around making my prompt as good as possible in the first instance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There would be OTs, and we can completely respect that just are not about using AI.
Yeah.
And
100%.
that's so fine and so understandable. It's a scary space. We already acknowledge that.
Yeah.
So people need to do what they feel right. And we spoke about appetite for risk and you know, that's something quite personal or at a company-wide, you know, you really need to sit down and ask those questions about where your stance is on sustainability and how you use it and what you use. And I think that, you know, as a company, we really are transparent and we're having lots of discussions around it and we're rolling it out very carefully and consistently. And I know for certain things with, you know, our image descriptions, that's been very helpful because we want our Instagram to be accessible for visually impaired people that might be viewing our content. And that was taking a really long time to do image descriptions for all our pictures.
It was a skill that we all needed to learn because the whole team was contributing to that.
That's right.
And we needed to know how much detail is helpful and what kind of detail is helpful.
That's right. And what Instagram would actually let you punch in terms of characters.
Which we never, ever achieved.
Oh, and now you can
always had to do 3 comments.
That's right. That's right. And now you can actually put that in, upload the picture and say, create an image description under these amount of characters and then check it and tweak it as you see fit. But that's something that we obviously don't bill for, but we want to put out quality content for the people that are consuming our content on Instagram. And we want it to be accessible. So if we can save time there, I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
On those kinds of things where we're regularly using it around image descriptions, the other thing that's been helpful across the team is to have like a prompt that we're all happy with and that everyone has agreed on and it's consistently spat out
a consistent response.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point.
And a copy and paste dump for anyone that's making an image description and any other like consistent things that we are using AI for.
Absolutely.
It's just another little time saver.
Yeah.
I think there's been lots of feedback as well. I can't remember particularly off the top of my head, a clinician that we've worked closely with is using AI in their sessions for notes and that kind of thing. But I do completely agree that there are times where I'm like, I need to write down all the information that this adolescent is giving me, but I feel like I can't be 100% present when I'm doing that as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And sometimes it really, you know, I've got one particular client that I know will make comments about if I'm typing versus if I put my laptop down.
Yeah.
She's made comments around feeling invisible when, you know, that attention isn't directly on her when she's speaking. And so there is, I'm sure, space for that in terms of being able to put your laptop down and say, hey, like, I just want to be here and present with you for this back and forth conversation, and my laptop is doing its thing in terms of catching all the stuff that I might need for my documentation.
That's a really good point. Same with all our parent coaching. We do a lot of sessions with parents, and it's so nice to be able to ask the questions and really immerse yourself in the coaching session without needing to be like, that was really important, I just need to write that down.
Particularly because in our last episode around parent coaching, we spoke about that's often a really vulnerable space as well. And sometimes when I mean, I know for myself, there's been GPs that I've seen over the years where I sit down and they don't even look at me because they're just like furiously typing down what I'm saying. I'm like, hello.
And I know, and you can understand it because they do 10, 15-minute appointment slots and they might see 20 clients in a day.
Yeah, they need that.
Yeah, they need to do that. And we're the same in that we only do 3 in a row sometimes. And by the end of that, you're like, oh gosh, what was my first session and what do we even talk about?
Particularly if it was a like conversation heavy.
Yeah.
That's
session
right.
as well.
Like all of those like body language and those like communication things that we do in clinic. If we have to turn our body away from the client in those conversations to then type something on our laptop, that, as you said before, Katie, it can ruin that rapport that you've got.
Yeah.
It can, well, not
it could
ruin,
be
but like
perceived as a
impact
rupture in that
absolutely.
relationship as
for
well.
Sure. But we also, the flip side is we understand the importance of accurate documentation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm inclined to think that there's a big space that we could reduce the amount of documentation we do and what we bill for. And that would free up time for us to actually be able to service more clients and do more direct therapy and face-to-face work. And we know that KPIs is something, especially in the NDIS space, that is a really heavy consideration. And I think that's mainly because of the administrative burden. And we do understand that working with clients and doing the work we do is a lot, but OTs don't love admin. That's why we went into OT. We want to make impact with clients.
We want to work with people. And
yes, that's right. We don't want to sit at computers and be writing notes all day.
I feel like I'm pretty confident in saying as OTs, 98% of us would say that's one of the worst parts of the role is
I know. And
it's just writing the notes. And I know that they can be super empowering and helpful.
Yeah.
But the actual process of doing it, I'd rather be doing something more meaningful sometimes for those families.
Day,
yeah.
I know. And I'll put my hand up as being one of those people that was just always hopeless at getting my notes done on time. And because it's just such a it's
easy to kind of just push it down the list and then
isn't it?
It's a problem all of a sudden.
I know, and then it can blow out and then you just get so overwhelmed by how many notes are outstanding. And I'm sure there's so many OTs and other clinicians listening along being like, oh gosh, I feel you. Like I've got 3 days worth of notes that I need to get out. So I think if we could tidy up the administrative burden for clinicians, I think there's, while still maintaining our obligations to record notes for the purpose that they're meant to be recorded for, I think that we could really create more space for the bit that can't be done by AI, which is our clinical reasoning, our support for families, our ability to engage and build rapport and really do what we want to do and what we're best at. So I'm all for AI in that space, and stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a catch up and see if we've really rolled it out with our client work
we'll do
a little bit more.
Who knows, next term or the term after, we'll touch base and go, where are we at now?
That's
good.
Josh, I know that you've probably done most of the sort of research in this area compared to us just dabbling in things ourselves, being told what to do by you. Is there anything for anyone listening that you think like has been a really helpful space or resource or place to go for you?
There was a webinar, I think it was a webinar or a workshop or something along those lines by Verve OT around privacy and AI use. I found it really, really helpful. They shared a whole lot of like resources and places to look and like policy around like how data's stored and the privacy and what requirements are not only in Australia but worldwide and what governing bodies do what, and just gave me a whole lot of information of like where to look and just considerations as we are starting to roll AI out. Anyone that is starting to dabble into the AI space, definitely have a look at that. So it was a webinar by Verve OT.
And I think like you said, like when you're looking at different platforms and that kind of thing, like Heidi has, like look at what they've got available in their resources. If you get questions from clients and that kind of thing, that they've got things you can
definitely
lean on, I suppose, as well.
That's a good idea. Same with Splos. They've done a few like whatever their lunchtime PDs are. There's a bit of discussion, and I know in the Facebook group there's chats around how to use it a bit more effectively, and it does learn like the early AI kind of programs within things you think, oh, this isn't very good, and then over time it does actually improve how it does things. And I've got friends that are pediatricians as well that are really looking at how it can help them in their space. That's in the medical field, that's another big implication.
I can only, because I know a lot of hospitals are still handwriting notes most of the time as well.
Oh,
so
I know. I know a nurse that was part of rolling out some AI within the hospital setting, and to get any change in big organisations like that it's going to be years.
Yeah.
But I think that really heavily looking into the programs you're using and what their specific AI is. And I know with Sploce it's Bobby, and you know, Heidi has its own version, and so really carefully looking into those things and making sure you're doing your due diligence, recording, getting consent, and making sure that we're really solidifying ourselves as the brain in the operation and not letting us
well said.
not letting it get away from us in terms of like clinical reasoning should always be the forefront of what we're doing.
Absolutely. Fabulous.
Thanks for joining us, Josh.
I liked this episode.
Yeah, please. I hope people leave a comment. We'd love to know how other people are using it.
Absolutely. Yeah, let us know what you're doing, what you've tried, that kind of thing. And then, like we said, maybe in a couple of months' time, we'll check back in around this and let you know how we're going with it as well. Beautiful.
Thanks for joining.
Guys. Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.